Good morning, day 2. I slept enough last night, but I've slept like shit. I've had worse nights, had better nights, but after I ate dinner, called the wife, talked to her for a little bit. We did hike her midnight at like 7:15, 7:20. At like 10:30, I was woken up. It was pouring rain, and it wasn't supposed to rain, which I know weather's weather, but this tent is in no way, shape, or form waterproof. I did not bring a tarp. Also, during the rainstorm, I realized that I did not bring a rain jacket or a poncho. So, hopefully the rest of the trip will be dry. Been up moving around a little bit this morning. Made some coffee already. Did a little bit of damage control. Looked around to see what all was wet. So far, the only thing I can find that really got wet is my gloves. They're laying on the floor, which is going to suck because it is cold. And the wind's just ripping through the mountains right now. So 7:30. I was walking by 7:40 yesterday morning. I'll probably be walking by 8 this morning, maybe. We'll see. Got up, moving around on the outside of the tent. Man, it's freezing. I think I got a little bit confused and tricked because I told y'all earlier that the rain moved in last night. This weird thing happened where when the rain moved in, I guess the clouds came over and blocked the thermal, so it warmed up, like to a point where I had to unzip my sleeping bag. And then it was like that most of the night. But then I noticed this morning that when the wind picked up, it got cold again. And the wind's just blistering through these gaps right now. I've got to get packed up and get off this ridge, get around the side of the mountain or something, get moving. It's just absolutely freezing, but I had to take a minute while I was breaking down camp to come appreciate this view. Seems like my food bag stayed relatively dry. The sky's not looking too good back that way. And that's exactly where I'm headed. I still got to go north a while before I head back west, but cleaned up camp. You can see where my tent was. Where my body heat was drying out the ground. I'm finally walking. It's 8:20, so I'm a little behind, which I'd planned on being a little behind anyways today. Yesterday was a big day. I'm gonna take it a little bit easier today. Don't have no destination in mind, just somewhere along the Duncan Ridge. I looked at the map, and the Duncan Ridge actually comes in higher up Blood Mountain than what I thought, so I'm not gonna have to backtrack quite as far once I summit the mountain. I'm hoping with a little bit of rain we got last night that Blood got it as well, and that water source will be flowing. I'll stop and get water there for sure. Looks like it's going to be about an 8 or 9 mile day at least to summit Blood, and then back down before I even start Duncan Ridge. So I may not even get a good portion of Duncan Ridge done today. We'll see. So that last clip that you just seen was Preacher's Rock on Big Cedar. Talked about it in the last video, but that was where I had intended to camp my first night. And here it is, midway through the next day before I even reached it. So I think it was attainable, but this morning's just been weird. I had a fog. I didn't want to get motivated to go. It's a thing that happens when you solo hike. You know, when you're hiking with a friend, you kind of motivate each other to get up and get going in the morning. And it was cold, and I finally got up and got going this morning, and then my body was super stiff, and I just ended up packing up camp and leaving in my sleep clothes. But then when I got to Woody Gap, I stopped at Woody Gap for a bit. And so when I stopped at Woody Gap, they have really nice privies there. So I went into the privy and changed out of my sleep clothes so they wouldn't get all nasty, and I'd still have them for tonight and tomorrow night probably. And went ahead and made a liter of electrolytes, liquid IV, drank about half of that. Went ahead and got carb loaded on some breakfast, and I don't know, that took me probably about 40 minutes. Another thing I also did was, this isn't a very sexy topic, it's not one that's talked about generally, but I started having some chafing problems yesterday about 3 miles before camp. My base layers just were not working right for some reason, so they were chafing me. And so this morning, when I got to camp last night, the hot spots kind of went away, so I didn't bother with it. But then as soon as I started walking this morning, they fired up again. So when I was changing clothes, I keep a first aid kit, and I got some Boudreaux's paste in there, which is essentially diaper rash cream, and I keep a tube of triple antibiotics, basically Neosporin, made up a concoction paste, and coated all the hot spots. And so far they've kind of calmed down a little bit, so hopefully it stays that way. I actually met a guy yesterday not far, well, on Hawk Mountain, and he was trail running. I met him again today, headed down Blood Mountain to Woody Gap. And so he's actually trail running every section of the trail, and his girlfriend is meeting him at the road crossings for resupplies and water and stuff like that. It is actually a really cool guy to talk to. Majority of the day's passed now. Just chasing that sunset. It's 2:20. I should be starting the Duncan Ridge Trail right now. I'm about a mile, half a mile, 3/4 of a mile off away from it. Just been in this weird funk all day, and I kind of mentioned it earlier when I left Woody Gap. I had 8 and I was feeling pretty good. That lasted about an hour and a half, and just not making good miles today, and I've had the wind blowing on me all day. I'm not sure what the deal is, but right now the plan is I'm here at this shelter. This is Woods Hole shelter. It's pretty far off the trail. Cooking some MREs, eating. I'm gonna eat and get a cup of coffee. Maybe some caffeine will help. Kind of get refueled here. Pretty late in the day to be doing it, but I think part of my problem is I'm just not getting enough calories, and I ain't got caffeine. So anyways, I crossed the water source on the way in, and the last time I was at this shelter, you actually walk through the water to get here. It was completely dry, but there was a side trail where people have been going up around to the top. It did say there was water down here by the shelter. I'm not exactly sure where. There's a sign there. I see a blaze, a blue blaze, but some people left smart water bottles and That one actually was about half full. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna pour that water bottle into my Sawyer, and then I'll boil it real good before I drink it. If there's some kind of crazy disease, I'm gonna get it, but generally speaking, boiling it should, I guess, work. I don't know. But water's too valuable just to let it go to waste, so. Got my jacket laid out over there. It's been a weird thing today too, where I've had to keep all my layers on. A lot of ridge walking, winds blowing right in my face. It's super freezing cold. If I take layers off, then I get too cold. If I have too many layers on, then I get too hot. So laying that out over there, letting the wind catch it and kind of dry it out some. Letting my back dry out. I did find these along the trail. A pair of super nice North Face gloves. And they were connected with a little hook. So I actually put the hook on my other gloves. My other gloves have been hanging on the bag drying. Those other gloves aren't really meant for cold weather. So I've not seen anyone else on the trail except for the one trail runner that I met yesterday. I don't know. Those were dry. They, they didn't get wet. They are size medium. They do fit. I tried them on. So those will come in handy. Proper trail etiquette would be to hike them over Blood Mountain and drop them off at the hiking center or leave them at the kiosk at Byron Reese. But I'm not going over Blood Mountain and I'm not going anywhere near there or another trailhead. So I'm just going to carry them with me and I'll use them as I see fit. All right, so just left Woods Hole Shelter. Coming back up the shelter trail here. Pretty good, pretty lengthy. Map says it's 0.2, but I don't know. Anyways, it appears plans have changed again. So after the last clip, when I was telling you that I was gonna eat and then jump on Duncan Ridge, while I was eating, I decided to turn my phone off of airplane mode and see if anything was going on in the real world. And I had a message from my wife about our daughter being sick. She's been sick for a little bit, probably about a week now. She was sick before I left, but apparently she's progressed and got worse. Wife's been working from home, but she needed to go in today, and she tried to go in. Usually it's okay to bring the kid. Tried to bring the kid, but her cough was too bad, so they sent her back home. She really needs to go in and get some work done, so we talked and discussed that I'm just going to come off the trail and go home so she can go to work tomorrow and take care of the kiddo. So right now, the new goal is to summit Blood and then hike down to Nils Gap at the hiking center. And she's gonna pick me up there and then I guess carry me back to my car, which is at Springer Mountain, and then back home. Kind of unfortunate that I don't get to finish the loop, but it'll be here. It's not going anywhere, and I'll come back and I'll start completely over again at Springer and do it all the way through the way it's supposed to be done. Or I may just come park at Byron Reese and hike up Blood going southbound, catch the Duncan Ridge going south. Well, this is going back towards the AT. This would be going back towards the shelter. It says water. There's a side trail that goes up into those rocks where spring normally is. But during this time of the year, usually by now, when you walk across this, it's got water. But it's just been so dry that there's no water right now. So it's also worth mentioning that it's probably for the better that I'm coming off the trail right now, because I just used the last bit of water I had back there at the shelter to cook and make food, or cook and make a cup of coffee. I've got enough for probably maybe 2 more cups of coffee. And before I left the shelter, I always like to write in the logbook. So I wrote in the logbook, and I was looking back through everybody's logs, and it seems like there's not really been any water from Big Creek, which is just south of Black Mountain from here. Crossed it yesterday. It's probably 12, 13, 14 miles from here, maybe 15. Basically from there all the way to the other side of Cow Rock, which would be Hog Pen. And to my knowledge, the next available water source from Hog Pen would be Chattahoochee Gap. So that's a good 45 mile section without water. And according to the logbook, it's been that way since August. There were submissions in there from August, people having a hard time finding water. And so I was banking on the spring right before going up Blood, having water, grabbing water there, and then shooting down the Duncan Ridge. But according to the way the logbooks are reading, it doesn't. It may right now, just because it rained a little bit last night, but the only real way to know is we'll find out here in a little bit when we get up there. But so yeah, as of now, that's the plan. Still got about 4.5 miles to make it to the hiking center. Probably about 2.5 to get to the top of Blood. So I'll catch up with you guys when I get to the top of Blood. Okay, so I'm about a third of the way up Blood Mountain, and this is where Hunter and I got water the last time we were here, probably a year ago. It was in the winter. This was all water. You actually had to walk through the water to get on the Slaughter Creek Trail. It is completely dry, and I believe this is the water source that I was banking on being here for the Duncan Ridge, because I actually thought this was Duncan Ridge Trail. Duncan Ridge Trail is a little further north, so we're going to continue up and see if there's a water source at the Duncan Ridge or not. And then from Duncan Ridge, it's just a little ways on up to the top of Blood Mountain. Got an alert on my phone, on my watch. I've got it set to alert me an hour and a half before sunset. That way, when it goes off saying, hey, you have an hour and a half before sunset, I know it's time to start looking for camp. It alarmed just a little bit ago that I have an hour and a half before sunset. So, that being said, this may be the first Blood Mountain sunset that I've ever experienced. That's the AT Duncan Ridge, obviously. That's where I should be headed right now. And honestly, I did not realize that it was that far up Blood, what I would call the north side of Blood. I mean, I don't know where it's going. By the map, it's going off down to the gap, but man, it's a lot of elevation drop. I'll get back to it one of these days. So this is
Blood Mountain shelter. I don't know for a fact, but I think that this was probably one of the first shelters constructed along the trail. It may have even been here before the trail was actually designated a trail. I know it's in the National Historic Building Registry, and because there is a campfire ban, well, back when I was at Slaughter Creek Trail earlier, there's a campfire ban from there all the way to the hiking center. So years ago, and they filled in this fireplace here, but I imagine this shelter is real similar to the ones they have in the Smokies, and the fireplaces in the Smokies you can actually use. And man, is it nice to be able to build a fire in there when it's cold out like it is. I think in the event of a day like today, you could bed down over in here and stay out of the wind, but a while ago the wind blew right up that valley through this door, so anybody that was staying on this side is just gonna freeze. But also, not really. I have been at the top of Blood Mountain a couple times now, but I've never really spent a lot of time up here. Usually I'm up here, take a couple pictures, and then I'm gone. This rock right here, you climb up and get on top. It's like one of the most popular things to do on top of Blood Mountain, apparently. And I've got a little bit of time, so right now I'm gonna walk up here and see one of the main views, and then I'll come back and hang out on the rock for a little bit. We may even watch the sun go down this evening. I've still got probably an hour or better before the light's even anywhere in the area, so stay tuned. to wrap the day 2 and this trip. Now we're gonna hike down off this mountain and wait for my ride. If anyone's wondering, this is what it's like to hike at night, specifically down Blood. I got through most of the boulder garden, just be on the safer side, but as you can see, plenty of things to get tripped up on. You gotta really stop and take your time, look around for blazes. People like to cut trails and stuff so much that you can't really, sometimes you can't distinguish what's the actual trail or not, so you just gotta look for a blaze. Not my first time night hiking, but it's not something I do very often. I don't really have anything against it. I just prefer to do it during the day so I can see the views. Although night hiking does have its own perks, like you can barely see it through the woods twinkling, but it's kind of the views that I had from last night. I got my phone pointed. There we go. Get my light turned back up. Drop my glove. Drop my stick. Got a call from the wife. She's already down at the hiking center. For some reason, her GPS was telling her to go Wolfpen Gap at Vogel to get to the hiking center. I'm not sure why, but so I'm trying to get down there before too much longer. I think I'm out of the steepest part now. And there is the hiking center at Blood Mountain finally. My wife should be there. So it's 1:29. Going by there. Yep, I see her car sitting over there. Alright guys, that's a wrap. I'll catch you on the next one.